Good morning to everybody. Thank you for your interest in this event. When we were asked a couple of months ago as an embassy and as Orange Grove to give our moral support to the event, we were immediately very interested because of a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that we think that in times of crisis, and we all are going through a crisis in Europe at the moment, we tend to focus very much on the short term, and we think that things like sustainability and business ethics and a socially inclusive model are maybe luxuries, and that these are things for later. At least that's the tendency in my country. We as a government try to tell people in Holland that these are not constraints, they're opportunities. And Europe is not going to maintain itself on the world stage with, let's say, the quick and dirty wins. We have to focus on the longer term, and that's why the issues of today that I just mentioned are very relevant. So it's a pleasure to give our support to this conference. Another reason to do this is that I think what's interesting about today is that we here combine the startup world with the world of the larger corporates, with academia and with government circles. And I think that the only way to get things going is to seek these combinations. I know these are very different spheres. We don't automatically all like each other, but you need each other if you want to get things going. For startups, it's immensely important to have these connections to the corporate world, but also to academia and the government. But all partners will have to think very well about what they have to offer and how they can do it. And I think that this event could help us to get a better feel for what the different actors in this field might find of interest. Third reason is perhaps that you might not know it, but a couple of weeks ago the mayor of Amsterdam was here. He met with the mayor of Athens. They signed a collaboration agreement in which the cities are going to collaborate in 4 fields. 2 of them are sustainability and supporting startups. So I think also that makes it very relevant, and I'm also very grateful for the city of Athens for its contribution to this event. But I was supposed to speak about Orange Grove. Let me say from the outset, and sorry to do this in English, but I think it's probably the most practical way forward. I would also like to ask you, please ask questions, interrupt me when you want to. I'm not very good at delivering speeches. I hope to be a little bit better in conversation, so feel free to interrupt me and ask things. It makes it more lively as well. I'm supposed to tell a little bit about what we did with the embassy, but with many other actors, and that's called Orange Grove Athens. It's an incubator in the heart of Athens, opposite the Kalimamro Stadium, for young entrepreneurs from Europe. In practice, it's 95% Greeks and 5% people from Holland and from other places, but that may change in the future. To give you an impression of what it looks like, this is the interior. You might recognize some elements provided by a company that's also a sponsor of this event, Cocomat. Mr. Paul F. Morfidis will be here this afternoon, I understand. He was very enthusiastic about the initiative, and he said, I'm going to help you with fitting out the space. Well, this gives you an impression of the atmosphere we try to create. It's a large open space, and there is a reason for that. Sorry for my cough. Why are we doing this? Why is an embassy doing this, and why focus on young entrepreneurs at this very moment? Well, there's various ways to put it. Everybody knows that youth unemployment and the brain drain are big issues at the moment in Greece. 60 to 70% youth unemployment, 120,000 people that left the country in the past, or higher educated people that left the country in the past couple of years. These are big drains on the future of the country. Inactivity and people are that are moving away are things that the country might suffer from for various years after the real crisis is over. So it's very important to do something about that, to make it attractive for people to stay here, to do things here. That's one of the reasons to do this. Or if you put it differently, look at what this means economically. The big challenge, I think, for the Greek economy at the moment is move from, let's say, a consumption-based model and a model based on the production of so-called non-tradable goods, services to the government, road constructions, etc., to the production of tradable goods, things that you can make money with abroad. Is this going to come from major investors in the coming years? Well, there may be some investment projects, but it's very well possible that it is mainly focused on very specific sectors of the economy, and that you need to get the economic dynamics from something different, and that is from small and medium-sized enterprises, and often from young enterprises. In Holland, 60% of all new jobs created are in companies less than 5 years old. I don't know what the figures for Greece are, but I find it a very telling figure. So it pays off to invest in young, small and medium-sized enterprises because they're major employment creators. And it's also more promising because for that you don't need these big investors. But these big investors that operate globally have all kinds of options nowadays to put their money. And they may just as well choose for one of the other European countries or for an Asian or an African country. With these small and medium-sized enterprises that are locally based, that are homegrown, it might be much easier to mobilize the resources to get something going. So that's also a reason to support this. But of course, things are necessary. You need to make these connections that we just talked about, and you need to provide some knowledge, etc. Why did the embassy decide to do something about this? Well, there's two reasons for it. Let's say we also felt we have a kind of a corporate social responsibility, that what we're seeing in the past couple of years is that basically Europe is falling apart. If we don't do anything, judgments in Greece about some countries in the north of Europe are getting very negative, and vice versa. In the north, there's also very strong negative judgments about the south. We need in Europe things that show that it pays off to collaborate and that you can provide something positive by doing things together. And that's why we thought, well, this might be a possibility. Then, of course, you ask yourself, why an embassy? I think that what we thought we could offer is access to our network. There's only one thing we're good at. We don't have huge loads of money, but we do have a lot of contacts, and we do have a certain position in society, both in Holland and here. And we want to open up that network, to use that network for the benefit of the young entrepreneurs in the Orange Grove. And at the moment, it works pretty well. For instance, when we started this a year ago, we found out that, of course, you need also some money for it. We went to talk to companies, and a little bit to our surprise, they were immediately very supportive to join this effort, because they do see that something has to happen and that it is interesting for them too to be associated with the activities of young entrepreneurs. We went to talk to universities, to the University of Amsterdam and the University of Delft and Wageningen and some Athenian universities. They also wanted to join the efforts. And there's many people that basically came to us to help, which was also striking. Many people said, well, this is interesting what you're doing. Can I be a mentor? Can I be a coach? Or can I do some kind of workshop? So it started snowballing, and it's really a group effort now. There's many people involved. We're doing this together. Many people have a dual background. There's many people, like for instance, Natasha Apostolidou, who's here today, who works in the embassy, who has a Dutch mother and a Greek father, or people that are involved in trade between the two countries, or people that have studied in Holland and now are back in Athens. So there's many people that want to get something positive about this combination of the two countries. I'll show you the list of sponsors. You know many of these companies. It's mainly Dutch companies, but also a number of very interesting Greek companies. Also a number of them, or various that are active in the field of sustainability. No questions at this point from your side. I mean, it's really an open invitation to jump in and say this is totally untrue. Can you say something more about it? Then we move to the actual design, which also expresses a little bit what we want to do with it. We think this is all about connecting and about mobility. In itself, it's not bad that people move up and down between various European capitals into the US, etc., but they have to move out and come back again, and they have to remain connected, and we have to use the connections that are established by this mobility, and that's also what we try to express in the design. This is the space, what it looks like in the morning, when still everything is organized. In the upper left corner, the two meeting rooms are parked. They're on wheels. They have one container wall on one side, and now they're there. There's workspaces, very organized, but in the afternoon it might look like this. People are free to organize it however, in whichever way they want. And actually it happens because what we see is that these startup companies that work in very different fields have synergies. They start to work with each other, they help each other. Actually at 11 o'clock I have to be at an event where one of the startups in Orange Grove, Clio Muse, which is making an app for museums, is going to record its promotional video. The recording is done by another startup of Orange Grove, which is called City of Errors, Mirto Papageorgiou, and they work together. And we've had more of these collaboration activities. And the space is intended to stimulate that. In the evening, we often have events, and then you can have this kind of setup. What do we offer in Orange Grove? Well, you can read this yourself. The important thing here is that it is, well, two important things here. One of it, it's not about the money and so on, it's about the effort that you put into it. So it's really about these people that do the coaching, that do the legal counseling, that come for the events, and it's about the community that you create in this space. That is the important thing. It's really about the people and about the connections. And that's not because I'm a kind of a new age guru. It's really what you see happening. And it's also what makes it difficult, because you have to put a lot of energy in it, and you have to keep the energy level high if you want to make this a success. That's also why some co-working spaces or incubators fail, because it is not always easy to put all that personal energy in it. Well, these are some pictures of what's happening there, the meet and greet. Yes, this is not just because I like seeing myself on a picture with the King and Queen, but it's mainly also to say that one of the important functions of Orange Grove and similar efforts is also advocacy. It's spreading the word, it's starting a discussion. That's immensely important. I sometimes, at this type of occasions, make the calculation about the amount of numbers that should be interested in this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Attica there's about 5 million people living here, more or less, right? Let's say that 20% of them, 1 million, is in the age group 25 to 40, or 20. That should be more or less right. According to official figures, about 500,000 of them will be unemployed. Of those, about 300,000 will be higher educated. 300,000 people. Let's say that a third of them, 100,000, might be interested in starting up something itself. Do you know for how many people the current startup ecosystem caters, the incubators and the co-working spaces? Maybe for 300 people. So there's a target group of 100,000 people, and there's only 300 people that are participating. What it tells is that there's still a lot of work to do in getting more people into the system, but also by having a discussion, having noise about a couple of values. Like, for instance, it's okay to start something for yourself. I hear from some of the people in Orange Grove that their parents don't particularly like the idea that they're starting something themselves. Their parents tell them, why don't you go to a government job or to a larger corporate? It's not well seen to be pioneering in a little company sometimes. That's the thing to stimulate. It's about giving young people responsibility. An example, when I go to something here, people say, are you the ambassador? You're very young. that makes me worry, because I'm about to turn 50. I'm at the age that my children tell me, Daddy, don't dance at our parties. Still, for Greek and also European standards, I'm afraid, it's very young, apparently. It also means that in the US, people start a company when they're 20. Here, we do it when we're 48. So give young people confidence, help them to do this, support them in this. Well, for that reason, this type of visits is very relevant, because you get publicity. We've been in the newspapers 100 times, thanks to the press also. We've also been able to attract some attention of the international press, which is also important, because I also think that Athens could be a bit of the Sun Belt of Europe, the place where people that have a good education, a footloose company, go to for a defined period of time to work on their business. There's many of these guys that work on their laptops. They dread the weather in Northern Europe or elsewhere in the winter, and now they go to Barcelona, for instance. Why not to Athens? I think Athens is a very cool place. It could be attractive for that, but you need to get something going, and that's why also these articles that we had, all of us in New York Times and Wall Street Journal and so, are very helpful. So also the Papoulias visit helped a little bit to put it on the map in Greece. Mrs. Cruz was here, and many, many other people. We had many speakers. We offer educational activities, 1-week courses to develop your business plan. They're very successful. I think that you really see people grow in that single week. They're free for the participants. Seminars. Every week we have a seminar or a workshop on Thursday evening. And we have all kinds of open events. And there's really a lot of activity. These are some of the people of the first hour, some of the people of the first batch that joined in September. Then we had 11 little companies, 15 people. Now 39 startups have their base in Orange Grove, and that amounts to about 70 people. And these are some of the brands. What are they? Well, this is, I think, a relevant figure. Here we have to do something about this. Although it's not bad, but I think why should this be skewed towards the male side? I don't know, but 31% is females. Many are in the IT apps and websites. Some make a concrete service, basically in tourism, and others provide make products. That's a minority. They're in various industries. IT is in itself is a big chunk. Then there is agri-food and tourism and the creative sector. These are the 4 target areas, but we don't exclude others a priori. Many of them are very early stage, which we like. We think that there you can add most value. It might also mean that many might fail. 8 out of 10 might fail, but it's immensely helpful to give them that year in Orange Grove and to make them advance. This is how to apply, but you will be able to find that on our websites, and this is how you can connect to us. May I make one final point about this whole thing? What are the main challenges now? Everybody thinks immediately of funding. Everybody is talking about the credit squeeze for small and medium-sized enterprises. It is a real issue, but I'm convinced that there's 2 challenges that come before that. First of all, widening the group, getting a much larger group that works on this, that is interested, that joins these incubators and other programs, because you need a wide group to begin with in order to narrow that down to the really promising ones. The second one is you have to bring them to that stage of maturity. When you talk to venture capitalists, also here in Greece, they often tell you we lack fundable projects. There is a lack of fundable projects. So funding is important, but be aware that if you're really good, if you've been through the steps, then there is funding available because people are really looking for fundable projects. So these are big challenges. And then on funding, I think that what we really have to look at altogether is how to use, for instance, European funds in a more productive way. It might be much more interesting to support 500 startups if you have 5 million euros to spend, instead of constructing let's say, a new boulevard in a village that already has a nice boulevard. Because these are things that cost about the same thing. 5 million to plant a couple of nice palm trees, etc., which is nice. But you can, for that 5 million euros, you can also support 500 people during 1 year to work on their startup. And that might have a bigger economic impact. Thank you very much for your attention.